All right, just days away here from the Heisman Trophy ceremony coming up on Saturday. So what I've got right now is 5 or 6 minutes to convince you why Jayden Daniels should win the Heisman Trophy over Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, let me qualify this by saying that I think it's really come down to Daniels or Michael Penix. I know Bo Nix is kind of like second in the odds right now, but here's the thing. Washington beat Oregon twice head-to-head. Penix played better than Nix in both of those games. So I think the only real competition for Jayden Daniels is Washington's quarterback, Michael Penix. Right now, Daniels the odds-on favorite to win, and it's really not that close. If you put money on it, I think he's minus 1,400, so you really wouldn't be getting much of a return should he win the Heisman Trophy. By the way, welcome to Game Time with John Eads. If you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe and check us out every Tuesday and Thursday. We got LSU content, Saints content, all the local teams in Louisiana, even talk about some of the national headlines as well. All right, let's get into this. So I'll start with some stats. You guys probably already know all these stats. Jayden Daniels leading the nation's top offense in LSU. It was super fun to watch those guys week in, week out, every Saturday. He's top 3 in passing yards, or LSU as a team is top 3 in passing yards. Daniels is number 3 individually, just behind Bo Nix and Michael Penix. Granted, they've both played one more game that Daniels has in that Pac-12 championship game, so it's a difference of like 400 yards. Whatever, not that big of a deal. Here are some key stats that I found. Jayden Daniels is number 1 in the nation in passing efficiency. It combines completion percentage, touchdowns, interceptions, all that stuff into one number, and that number is well above 200. The next closest guy is Bo Nix, and he's down at 186. So there's a clear gap there between efficiency when it comes to passing. Nix must have more incompletions, more interceptions, and less touchdowns, and it's really not that close. Also, Jayden Daniels is number 1 in the country in points responsible for per game at 25.2. So whether it be passing touchdowns, that'd be 6 points. A running touchdown, of course, is 6 points. He leads the country individually in all of those numbers, and I'll have more on that kind of layer to this argument in a minute. He not only affects the game as a passer, but also a runner, and he does so at an elite level, more than Nix, more than anybody else that is up for this award. More on that in a second. As I said, on that number, Bo Nix, 21.5. So there's a 4-point difference there on a per-game basis, and Daniels and Nix are both dual-threat quarterbacks. So there's a gap there, and it's pretty sizable. If it wasn't, I wouldn't tell you about it. So let's talk about Michael Penix, Washington's quarterback. He's been in college for years. I remember watching this guy play at Indiana for a couple seasons with Kalen DeBoer, Washington's head coach. At the time, he was Indiana's offensive coordinator. Those two have just stuck together pretty much his entire collegiate career, minus a year where DeBoer went to Fresno State. So the reason why Penix should not win the Heisman over Daniels, because he had a couple of bad, I would say, and mediocre games this season. Games where the defense had to bail him out, or maybe the running game had to bail him out. Washington had a lot of close games this year. They're 13-0, but kind of like TCU last year, they won a lot of really close games. So I got 4 games that I found where Penix didn't put up the best numbers. A game against Arizona State that Washington won 15-7. LSU puts up 15 points in 2 possessions easily. They only scored 15 points the whole game against an Arizona State team that finished well below 500 this season. Was competitive, but still. 27-42, under 300 passing yards, 2 picks, no touchdowns. How about another game against USC? 52 points were scored in this game, and Penix only accounted for 2 of those touchdowns, 250 yards, and then an interception. So he wasn't the focal point of winning that game based on the statistics there. How about another one where the defense had to win? Against Oregon State, a 22-20 win. He was below 50% completion percentage, 13 of 28, barely got to 160 passing yards, and had 2 touchdowns. Like, those are not Heisman-worthy numbers. The defense had to win Washington that game. Here's another one, the Apple Cup. Again, hovering just at about 50% completion percentage, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick, 24-21. Those are 3 different games where they were low scoring, and Penix perhaps wasn't the reason that Washington won. He may have made some big plays in key moments, but overall the defense was what won the Huskies those football games. By comparison, LSU did not win this year unless Jayden Daniels showed up to play every week. Like, this defense could not stop anybody. They probably couldn't stop Catholic High down the road, who's playing in the high school state championship today. That's how bad they were. And not to mention, Daniels' worst game this season, was against Grambling State when he put up 269 passing yards and only 30 yards on 5 carries. But, he didn't play the second half, right? So if that's your worst game, I think that's okay. His other bad game, you might argue, was Alabama when he went 15 of 24, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. That pick also was a tipped pass. But here's the thing. Not so fast on that. It was not a bad game, because he also had 11 carries, 163 yards, and a touchdown. And that's the difference here. Jayden Daniels this season was QB1 and RB1 for LSU. He put up over 1,100 rushing yards, more than Washington's running back, Dylan Johnson. And if he didn't bring that rushing statistic on a particular Saturday, this team doesn't win. He ran wild against Alabama. He went wild against Florida and Texas A&M. If he doesn't go for those 60-yard runs, 70-yard runs, LSU does not win the football game. So, look, Michael Penix benefited from a timely defense. A running back in Dylan Johnson, who finished 26th in the country in rushing yards. He was a key component of that offense, too. It wasn't just Penix slinging the ball over the yard. He's also not a dual-threat quarterback. And then the defensive comparison, Washington finished top 50 in scoring defense. LSU was 77th. So Washington still had a good defense. And as I just told you in those games, Oregon State, ASU, the Apple Cup, the defense had to win the Huskies those games. It wasn't Penix by himself. JD5, he had to lead this offense to 40-point outputs at least to win games this year. The games they lost, FSU, they gave up 45. Ole Miss, they gave up 55. And then Alabama, they gave up 42. It's very hard to win football games when your defense gives up those kinds of scores in games. There were other games, Missouri, Florida, where still the opposing offenses put up big points. LSU just outscored them. And that's how LSU had to win games this year. That's why they went 9-3, not 12-0. You give Jayden Daniels Washington's defense, this team's probably in the college football playoff right now. And then not to mention, Daniels faced some great defenses this year. 3 different top 20 defenses. I didn't look at all the opponents, but 3 in the top 20 right now. Penix saw just 1, Utah. So he faced harder competition, put up better numbers, and was overall more important to the team than Penix was to Washington, because Penix had a better defense to work with, a better run game, perhaps an easier schedule, and didn't face as tough of defenses. So I know LSU went 9-3. I get that. And Washington's 13-0. They're playing in the Sugar Bowl down the road in NOLA. But LSU needed Daniels more, and that's why he should win the Heisman Trophy this Saturday.